now and talking about voter participation, of course, the permanent voters card. Hope you've collected yours, because I think the deadline is the 8th of February. So if you haven't picked up your PVC, hope you can do that before the 8th, because elections are on the 16th, and I'm sure you want to be a part of that. Now, in 2015, I think the elections were won and lost, especially on the federal level, at least by give or take 2 million votes. We had over 69, I think about 69 million registered voters, but over 30 million did not vote on the day. So that's more than, I think, the participation on election day was less than half, pretty much. And we're going to be looking at participation this time. I think we have 84,271,000 registered voters for the 2019 election. And want to see how we can sort of ginger you people more to come on election day. I have here with me Martin Obona and Victor Samaria. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the numbers are crazy. 84 million registered voters, the most we've had in our history. Someone said that's about 3 or 4 Ghanas put together and just registered to vote. Historically, apathy is sort of a thing with Nigerian elections. And I don't know, are you expecting to see anything different this time? What's the sort of vibe you're getting?
From my perspective and the people I've interacted with, I think it's going to be different from what's happened in 2015. The reason being that in 2015, people saw and felt that their votes counted and they wanted a change. There was a yearning for change, and then that change happened. So it has actually doubled, where people are saying, okay, if we could remove a sitting president, so it is possible for us to also change things or maintain the status quo, depending on which divide you fall in.
Yeah.
And so I've encountered people who say, oh, I registered in the East, I registered in Gombe, I'm going back home to vote. I met a shoemaker who told me that he's going to leave 3 days before the election because he needs to go and vote in his village.
No stories.
Just stories. So there are people who are really keen on this election, essentially, who want to vote. But then there are also people who are not, who still are skeptical about the elections and are saying, why do I need to go and vote? The elections will be rigged after all. A lot of sentiments, people were brought in to campaign in our bare face from another country for a sitting president. And so if they could do this blatantly, how are we sure that they won't import container loads of people to come and vote in the 2019 election? So these still are things that are issues that need to be addressed, and encourage voters to say, hey, your votes can still count, they will still count. INEC is making everything humanly possible within their reach to ensure that people have that confidence in the commission, so the votes of people can actually count.
Is that the same feeling you have from people around you?
Well, primarily for me, I see things from a different perspective. Now, one of the greatest things you can do for a country as a person, apart from obviously giving your life in line of service in the military and so on for your country, is participating in the electoral process. And I say so for a number of reasons. Now, I'm talking to my generation. Over time you meet people here and there talking about the elections and my votes don't count, I'm not going to participate in this election. And I tell them, hold on, wait, you have to listen. The greatest thing you can afford to lay down for your country as a youth, especially as millennials, as we see ourselves, is to participate in the electoral process. You cannot hijack a plane without being on the plane. And that is what my generation has failed to understand. You need to be inside, you need to be part of the electoral process before you can then complain about accountability, good governance, and stuff like that. So first to say you need to be part of the electoral process.
I know apathy has there's many reasons why people don't like to participate in elections. Historically in Nigeria, it's because people have believed what both of you have said, the fact that, my votes won't count anyways. But there was a feeling, like you said, that last time, maybe we could make a difference. So this year, are you getting a lot of that, or are you getting, because I've also heard people say, I look at the choices out there, they're not as exciting to me. I don't know who I want to vote in this pool of people. I don't know that I can trust any of them. So are you finding that it's more apathy from fear of rigging, or apathy from a lack of options?
I think it's apathy or fear of rigging more than options. Because if you look at the candidates, all the candidates, I've seen people who say, I'll vote for a particular candidate, you know, that candidate, irrespective of whether he wins or loses or he stands a chance or not, I'm going to give him my vote because it's my conscience. And I've also seen those same people say whether they rig it or not, I would vote. So it is not a thing of options, but most of the people who we encounter are more scared or we're more worried about the conduct of the elections in terms of the security influence and the credibility of INEC, the transparency of INEC. You know, there was that concern of whether or not security agencies will not hijack the process from DSS and the rest. But with this new IG coming on board, the tension has doused a little bit. People are still trying to observe to see, okay, will the INEC, will the current chairman, IGP, toe the same line of the former IGP? And so there is not, that fear is really not there as much as it were before. So people are still saying, okay, let's see, I'll come out, I'll vote, but let's see. There are quite a number of people who are actually putting up some initiatives in terms of trying to ensure the credibility of the 2019 elections. And we are basically saying that if at the end of the day you come out and you vote, it makes it very difficult for somebody to rig your vote if you come out to vote. Because politicians who rig elections of the numbers, based on numbers. So if 10 people are registered in a particular polling unit and just 3 turn up, the politician who has more money, who has more power, who has more influence in that polling unit will say, hey, beat that other agent or get him out or pay him off, let him leave this place. And then they will make up the numbers by thumb printing on your behalf, on the behalf of the 7 people who didn't show up at the polling unit. So the best way to actually prevent rigging is on the citizens. So if the citizens come out en masse and vote, nobody will rig their elections, their votes. So the whole responsibility behoves on us as citizens. You know, it behoves on the electorate to come out and ensure that they vote, so your votes will not be rigged, essentially.
Let's talk about INEC now, because you mentioned there about confidence in the system, and I think that's a huge talking point for a lot of people. First of all, the registration process for a lot of people was tedious. I know how many times I went there. Most of you, I'm sure everybody has their own story of trying to get their PVCs and standing in queues for days and all of that. Looking at that and looking at election day, which is going to be probably even more hectic because then everybody comes out and wants to cast their vote. Looking at INEC, that might also have affected, the participation and apathy. Are you confident enough?
Well, going by global best standards and practices all over the world, it is a fact that, there's usually tension when it comes to confidence in the electoral empire and things like that. But the first things first, Nigeria must know that we're a developing country. And as such, expecting the independent National Electoral Commission to be at its best, it's way too high, and such an expectation from the INEC. Going by global best practices, the INEC has said they're doing the best they can in ensuring the electoral process is transparent. And by comparing in terms of PVC collection, I think pretty much going by the statistics, there's been improvement in terms of PVC collection. And the best we can do as citizens is to encourage the electoral process, encourage INEC by being there for them and being supportive, as opposed to casting aspersions on them as an electoral body.
But when you look at the elections they've held recently,
yes.
Because you're only as good as your last, like we say, your last gig or your last performance. You look at Osun State, you look at Ekiti, and all of the dust that was raised in those processes. Those are state-level elections. Should you be worried? Are you okay with how they performed?
Well, a lot of us spoke about the performance of INEC in the recent elections, and personally, I wasn't happy with some of the turn-ups. And then INEC has taken the brace, they've braced for impact, and they're coming back stronger. They've told the entire world that, look, we've come to terms with the fact that, not everything went well in Ekiti in terms of the standards expected of the electoral empire. But they're coming to say that, wait, 2019 is a new era, and then we are confident that we're going to do better. I think we should give INEC the benefit of the doubt to see what they can do in terms of output and performance.
What are expectations on election day now? I think with 2 elections in a row now, at least I've been in polling booths where people voted and waited and stayed to count, and it's even probably going to be more intense this time because everybody is now ready to guard their votes and all of that. But there's also an INEC regulation or an electoral law that says, when you vote, you should leave the polling booth. And I explained that to mean that you can still hang around until, voting is done and all of that. What are your expectations on the day of election from Nigerians?
I expect that Nigerians will be of good conduct on the election day, and they will follow the guidelines and rules that INEC has made in terms of ensuring the conduct of election, the peaceful conduct of the elections. Because first off, INEC has said recently that people shouldn't bring their camera phones or phones to the voting point, to the polling units. That's
you can go and vote with it, but not to the polling booth.
Not to the polling booth, yes. So, so that's because they want to curb vote buying. Yeah. The situation where people thump and then they take a picture of what they've done and go to meet someone out there and say, okay, I voted your party, give me my 5,000. So people need to be aware of that and also ensure that they don't run against those rules. And secondly, within the polling unit or the polling booths, Nigerians should conduct themselves peacefully and in an orderly manner. Third, I would also recommend that the law enforcement agencies be of professional conduct. That will be the highest level of honor they will give to this country and service. Because if you look at elections, everybody was born by parents they didn't choose. But the moment you turn 18, you have the right to choose your leader. And the second person who will take you to your destiny or destination is your leader, the leader you choose. So if you take that away from people, you're denying them a fundamental right that goes down to the root of their being. So I expect that the security agencies would live up to that, the true expectation of citizens, and be of good conduct on that day, and not do what happened in Osun or Ekiti or elsewhere, So let them be very professional. That's my expectation, while citizens also conduct themselves well.
You talked a lot about, the important, how voting is sort of a huge deal for you with regards to young people taking it seriously and it being of service to the country. We have some countries, I believe Australia is sort of the beacon for this, where voting is compulsory and you have to vote. If you don't vote, you are fined. And I think that's one of the only countries I know off the top of my head. Do you think it's something that could work here where it becomes compulsory, you have to vote?
Coming from a legal perspective, I think we're still in the developmental stage, of catching up with the rest of the world. But that being said, I think one of the best things, I cannot emphasize this enough, one of the greatest things you can give to your country as a citizen of that country is to be part of the electoral process. Not being part of the electoral process is already bad enough. You're contributing, you're an accessory, so to say, to the bad governance in that country. So as Martins has said, when people are talking about, I'm not going to participate in this election because I don't believe in the electoral process, we have to make these things clear. Issues of electoral confidence and not believing in the empire is not just peculiar to Nigeria. In the US, you saw the recent elections, people that up till date, they're still investigating and talking about electoral interference in the US. That cannot bar a citizen of the United States not to participate in the election, quoting the fact that, there's going to be a proposed rigging in the election, so I'm not going to participate. That is bad reason enough. So particularly, I'm concerned about my generation. We should be part of the electoral process. We should be part of choosing our leaders, because as a matter of fact, the leaders we are seeing today, the politicians all over the place today, are not going to be there in the next 20, 30 years. It's our generation, and then they're incurring debt. We are the people that are going to pay for it. They're committing electoral blunders that we are going to be the people to pay for it. So as a matter of fact, I want my generation to participate fully in this coming election.
Talking of participation now, I heard something about a football match. You want to help me unpack that? What is this about?
Okay, so our organization TAP Initiative is organizing a novelty football match called PVC Football. So what we're basically doing is to bring the AFCON, the 1994 AFCON winners, to play a novelty match against the 2013 AFCON winners. So the likes of Taribo West, Kanu Ankwo, Victor Ekpeba, Amokachi, the host of that team, Uche Okechukwu will be playing against the new breed. at the National Stadium on the 9th of February, that is on Saturday. MI Two-Face will perform during the halftime show. And what we're basically asking is, you don't need to pay, just come and watch your favorite stars, but come with your PVC. The reason is, we want to encourage more people to get their PVC and to also come out and vote. So the reason also is that it heightens, when you have more people who come out to vote in an election, it heightens the credibility of that election, the electoral integrity also, and then you have a better society. Because if, for example, everybody is crying for a change, and then everybody comes out to vote for that change, everybody will feel that sense of responsibility and duty. So what we are doing that day is to say, come to the National Stadium, watch your favorite stars, and there will be security guarantee, there will be freebies and all that. So people need to actually just come out on that day and watch their favorite stars, Victor Ikpeba, Kanu Nwankwo, all of them.
What day is this?
On the 9th of February by 2 p.m., between 2 and 4. So it's going to be a big deal.
Is this Victor playing?
His leg is not strong enough.
Are you expecting 2015 to happen again? And I'm not necessarily talking about a change of government, but sort of people came out to vote in 2015. They wanted to make a point, and they proved the point. Do you think we're going to be able to make a point? Because people have been saying, "Oh, these elections are going to be pivotal. It's so important in our history." Do you think this is going to be different?
Well, moving by, I like referring people to history. As a matter of fact, when it comes to electoral processes, people make their decisions based on what is going on in the country. So it doesn't matter if you're voting according to your conscience. The reason why Victor Samira will be going out to vote on that day will be different from the reason why Martins Obono will be going out to vote on that day. I may be voting for a different reason, XYZ may be voting for a different reason. So if the party you are in alignment with, the candidate you want to support, does not necessarily represent what you expect as a person, so to say, I think the best you can do for yourself is to go out and make your voice heard. Let there be a referendum on the government, so to say, if the government has done well based on the promises they've made in the last 4 years, or, they've gone beyond the expectations of ordinary Nigerians, and so to say. So, personally, as a person, I feel things are going to be different. The build-up to the 2015 elections, people never expected what was going to happen. Yeah. And there are similar trajectories in the forthcoming elections, and I believe Nigerians are going to pass a referendum on the state of the nation. Yeah.
There's still a lot of fear very quickly now about, electronic voting and how we're not ready for it. I think the governor of Kaduna State tried it in his local elections there, but on a federal level, INEC has said, no, we're not ready. The federal government is not particularly excited about it either. How far away do you think we are from it? I mean, we have a banking system that runs on electronics. We have so many things that are biometrics are taken everywhere. Why can't we do the same with our voting?
I feel we are just lazy as a government because until you try, you can't really tell. So we should be ready for electronic voting because technology has taken over almost everything. You do your banking, your bank transactions from your mobile phone. Everything basically is already gone digital. But then why can't we give this opportunity in terms of the electoral process to allow people to vote electronically and also even vote from outside the country? People can vote from prisons. They ought to vote from prisons, So these are the things that we are saying. And so the government needs to sit back and look at all the growth that has happened in technology, in the banking, in education, and all that, and compare it to the electoral processes, basically, and then know that the people are actually ready. You can't take away the rights of people to vote because of technology. No,
when it's
readily available.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for being here today. Once again, 9th of February, you said, 2 p.m. National Stadium. Surulere. What's the match called?
PVC football.
PVC football. Yeah. We're going to be watching AFCON champions battle each other. Thanks a lot for being here today, and good luck with your match.